Okay, so this is the intro to Ahsoka Tano. Ahsoka Tano! A former Jedi currently wandering the galaxy in attempts to escape the clutches of the Empire stumbles upon a planet called Earth. The primitive planet seemed like the perfect place to hide due to the natural hostility of its residents and the low-class technology used there. It would make it hard to be tracked. But she also went because of a distress call in the heart of a city called Gotham. When she goes to investigate, all she finds is a building attached to a clock tower. So she's in Gotham City with a clock tower building. Who do you think is going to show up?
The Easter Bunny?
Yeah, about that.
Actually.
Ahsoka Tano may be a strong Jedi, but for some reason, she feels her eyelids growing heavier. Suddenly, a high-pitched cackle rings through her mind as she wakes up wearing a dress of a time and space not of her own. I'm alright. Welcome to Wonderland, dear Snips. You, my dear, would make a fine Alice. Please spend the day with me. I've all the tea you want. Presenting himself, the Mad Hatter takes a large bow as he tips his hat. Will Ahsoka Tano forever find herself a prisoner of Wonderland? Or will her Jedi resilience let her escape the clutches of Jervis Stutter? There's different versions, there's different variations of them each. So, which one are you choosing?
To explain it for the people who don't know, I'm not using the Mandalorian snips. It's going to be the Rebels one. The Rebels one's about that time. So, after she fights Darth Vader and is just in that space and time where you don't really know where she is. She's a fulcrum, if anyone actually knows what it is.
It's not the Mandalorian. Stop thinking.
Well, because
that's
I
what
have a feeling
everyone's
that's how
flocking
Miss
to.
Fields would know her. Like, that's how the adults and some people would know her, or like other people. So it's easier just to say before that.
Kids just don't understand.
Because like Mandalorian takes place in this time after the Empire and before First Order.
Yeah. Honestly, she's still really powerful at that point in time, so this might be quite a challenge.
I'm
For
still mad that she doesn't have big horns.
she'll look like Shakti, it's fine. Don't, don't, don't. I swear to God. For the Mad Hatter, the character's been around since the 40s, so there's a lot of ground to cover. So to keep everything that's really necessary for the sake of this battle, I'm gonna be kind of doing an amalgamation of a few different versions. But the one that I will be relying on the most in terms of his motive and his tactics will be coming from the Arkham series, which, for those that don't know, first off, how can't you? But second of all, it is a group of Batman video games released by Rocksteady that are magnificent. And the Mad Hatter is one of the recurring villains in those games, which makes me mega happy. So, without further ado, let's get on with the argument. Yes. So, Um, that's right. Get funky. So, what research and what details do you have to prove that Ahsoka Tano can beat the Mad Hatter?
Okay.
Because she's already in Wonderland. She's already slipped into it, so she's not exactly running around the streets of Gotham anymore. It's not Kansas.
Okay, so I'm gonna throw a little bit shade at Anakin and Obi-Wan.
As you should, starting off your argument. Go ahead.
So, one of the biggest things I've noticed in the Clone Wars is that Anakin and Obi-Wan will, like, you know, argue back and forth. Because, you know, Anakin wants to be a Jedi Master, and Obi-Wan's like, no, I'm the Jedi Master, you need to listen to me. Where, if you remember the episode, Ahsoka is like,
there.
Hey guys, there's fire over there. Let's go over there.
She's awful sensible.
Yeah, like in Wonderland, you need to solve puzzles. At least from what I remember from the game. Like,
to a degree. To a degree. It's a
you
little
know,
bit of puzzle solving.
She's good problem solving. When it's not something she's passionate about, she has good problem solving. If she's passionate about it, she doesn't think straight.
Her emotions get in the way and they bring her to the dark side.
No.
Oh.
Yes, but no.
Oh, alright.
The other thing is, I don't know if this is quite true, but doesn't Hatter have his own, like, goons that dress up in, like, rabbits? Like the March Hare and the White Rabbit?
Yes and no. I mean, yes, he does, but in this case, they're not present because he can just make other stuff happen. He doesn't need other people there.
Okay. 'Cause I was gonna say, if there's people in Wonderland, I mean, Ahsoka could, you know... Oh, I can't say that word. Could kick some people's butt.
Yeah, if it's a more than a 1v1, she's probably not gonna hesitate bringing out those sabers and chopping through some white rabbits.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
So
the other thing is, I don't know how Wonderland would be if a Wonderland would affect it, but I mean, she's got the Force. At this point in time... Oh, wait. Oh, never mind.
What?
I saw there's a clip, but it's a different Ahsoka that does it, so I can't use it. I was gonna say she could use the Force, but at this point in time, I don't think she's actually that good at the Cosmic Force. She's better, but she's not good.
She's not like Anakin / Vader level, but she's improving.
No. She's like just under Obi-Wan.
So, that's actually not too good, because it's said that Obi-Wan is not too strong in the Cosmic Force.
Well, I don't think she's above Obi-Wan. Then she's either at Obi-Wan or under. I don't think she's above Obi-Wan.
I'll be generous and say probably at during this time period, because since it's a time period, it's not a definitive, like, age. So, because it's an age gap, that power can vary. But for the sense of this, we're gonna just take it to extremes and say she's about on par. Which isn't much against other Star Wars people, but going against a human being. And to preface, Jervis Tetch is an actual living, breathing human being. He's not like Freddy Krueger. He's not actually the Mad Hatter where he's got magic powers. All of his stuff can be explained to some degree. And he can be killed. Until they bring him back for the sequel. But
That says so.
Until the plot says we need Jervis Tetch. So, your pros going for Ahsoka are that she's good at problem solving. She's a strong, independent woman who need no man. And, I mean, she's very strong when it comes to lightsaber combat and all that crazy stuff. and she has the Force. Some.
Oh, and she's hard-headed.
She is stubborn too. That is one of the things that I would suggest you point out. Her willpower is off the charts, which is one of the reasons why she goes down the path that she does, come Rebels and the Mandalorian and all that. And even at the end of the Clone Wars, or during the Clone Wars, several times even.
During. She does it like season 5.
Yeah, but she's, because of how headstrong she is, that would actually help against Tetch's influence, because, I mean, if Batman can do it and he's a human being, now add the Force and lightsabers to that kind of bullheadedness.
Yeah, I mean, her species have a very good sense of family, so I mean, if you use a memory with a family member in it, besides Anakin, like excluding Anakin, it might not work to Jarvis's advantage as much.
Yeah, that's pretty fair. Though I don't know, because here's the thing. Technically, Ahsoka, at least in her very early ages, was brainwashed by the Jedi, because she was snatched up at the age of like 4 and trained to be a Jedi, and then she...
Sorry, there's that disagrees, because she wasn't like with, from what I remember, it could be wrong, she wasn't with like all the other kids. It was like Plo and the clones that watched over her.
Yeah, but my point was, she was still nabbed up to be trained as a Jedi. First by Plo, and then by Kenobi and Skywalker, so that mentality is already driven into her head, so we don't know how much of her memory of being on that planet, like, we don't know how much of that, because we'll get to my person later, but your pros are stubborn, problem-solving, Force, good fighter. Is that it for the pros, or do you have anything more that you think would be...
I mean, I have cons, but that's really it.
Well, yeah, I would suggest you add the cons as well.
Alright. Then the main one is that, if I'm correct in age, in the Rebels, she's like 20, like late 20s?
She's almost like pushing 30, I think.
Because, yeah, she's like, I'd say 28. Then, okay, my first con doesn't work. But the second one is, due to her passion, it does make her very vulnerable. Like...
Especially for somebody who preys on that.
Yeah. We've also seen in the past, it's more in Clone Wars, when she's like, I'd say 17, when she's, specifically when she like covers up more. That time in the Clone Wars, when she has like the long sleeves. I have to explain it.
Yeah.
But it's an episode that I need you to watch, because it's a good episode. But, it's when we see Dark Snips. Like,
no.
She falls, not easily, but quicker than most people.
She's got some deep-seated stuff, even if, yeah.
I'll admit, she stays resilient, like she's, because I think the whole, like, planet is basically trying to turn everyone against each other.
It's basically like the Star Wars version of the Overlook Hotel.
Yeah. She doesn't go immediately, but she's still pretty susceptible to, like, that kind of, those kind of visions, because she has experience with them, but doesn't quite know what they are. So she's still... If Hatter played it right, he could make it think, like, he could make her think that the Force is trying to talk to her, and that'd probably, you know, help with the brainwashing that he's trying to do.
That would make sense, but it also only goes off of her knowledge of it, so I don't know how much he would be able to, like, make it completely foolproof, considering he's never experienced the Force before. So he only has a Ahsoka to go off of, which is a very jaded, narrow perspective of a bigger topic.
Yeah, because I mean, as far as I know, the only very like cosmic force thing she did was when she kept getting premonitions about Padme Amidala getting assassinated during one of her speeches. It didn't happen. Padme did not die. But
For
but
those of you that don't know, I despise Padme. Continue.
She's like way better in the Clone Wars though. Like she's actually useful in the Clone Wars. But that's like there's probably more like in the later seasons that I just haven't seen, but so far that's really like the biggest one I can think of.
Okay.
Besides sensing Vader, but that's not hard.
No, he doesn't really hide himself. Stealth is not one of his main things, so you're gonna feel him. He's very dominating. But basically, being susceptible to emotion and the capabilities of being spooked is Ahsoka's biggest weakness. Not that she doesn't have other ones, but that's the one that would probably be relied on the most.
Yep.
Okie dokie. So, as I said before, there's a lot of different versions of Jervis Tetch that exist. So I'm going to be mainly using the Arkham version of him, but I will be including some other things from his past that I think would be important, especially in this fight. Not only because I think it's an important part of the character and I think it would be interesting, but also if he didn't have these things, he would get clapped so easily. So I had to make it somewhat equal and not be a squash fest. So, yeah. Pros on his own. This is seen in the Arkham game somewhat, but also in other variations of it, whether it be in the comics or, ironically, in the Lego games. Yeah, you know it's a great argument when I have to cite a Lego game to introduce this. But despite being small, which let me preface, Jervis Tetch physically is not that dominating of a person. He's small, he's short, kind of squat, not built anything like the actual Mad Hatter from the books where he's all tall and gangly and Johnny Depp. No, he's a weird little trollish looking dude. A little bit of a creeper. But in Wonderland...
Yeah.
Hey! In Wonderland... Hey! In Wonderland... and actually, to some degree, in the real world, too, he's a skilled hand-to-hand combatant. He actually knows how to hold his own in a fight. Whether this is self-taught or he studied somewhere, I have no idea. But he is pretty skilled in hand-to-hand combat, even compared against the likes of Batman. Mostly because he fights pretty unpredictably. And with his small size, he can, you know, run around you and be a lunatic. But, along with just his fisticuffs, his little dukes, he also is experienced with different blades. One of his most notable ones is a rapier that is based off of the Vorpal blade that Alice uses in the later books and in Madness Returns or whatever. We don't see much of the rapier in the Arkham games, but there are other comics, definitely later comics, where he uses that sort of as his main Wonderland offense when he's not like
Wait,
what?
is it the sword or the knife?
Um, he has
If you can
both.
remember.
He has both, but
It's pretty
his
cool.
sword is shaped more like a kind of like Dooku's lightsaber. Like it doesn't have the cup around the hilt. And the blade isn't like that long, thin foil kind of thing that's like wiggly. Um, it's shaped kind of like a weird, long but thin, kind of machete-ish kitchen knife thing. But it's thin enough that he can use like
Okay.
a fencing sword, and he
Because
can hold his
the
own with it.
Vulcan blade in like the movie looks like Excalibur, but white.
No, it does not look like any sort of great sword in the comics. It's actually based more off a short sword. I don't know how much of that is from the original books. Not his rapier thing, but just like the way they designed it.
Yeah.
But considering that his Alice is the blonde one from the 30s animation and not the raven-headed one from the books and the actual like real Alice in Wonderland stuff. There are some discrepancies that kind of are odd, because he's supposed to follow basically off the books, her adventures in Wonderland and through the Looking Glass and whatever. But because marketing reasons, they went with some of the Disney stuff and just changed up a bunch of whatever, which they later backed up and added reasoning to why it is the way it is, which I will get to later. So he has his weapons and whatever. He also has, I've seen him use a flintlock before, like the old like Victorian era pistols. He doesn't use them often, because he doesn't really need to. But I have seen him use that. They do reference it in the Lego game. His one weapon is a flintlock pistol, and it kind of makes like a clapping sound when he shoots it. So it's kind of goofy. But to be fair, he also has a helicopter in his hat. So they're also going off of like maybe like the late 60s.
I remember that.
Yeah, because he bounces around. He's just boing, and he just jumps like really far. It's funny. So that's his first pro. Second of all, he is a mastermind of various mind control devices, which are his main form of attack. This is where he becomes most dangerous, because he's a brilliant inventor, definitely an entrepreneur. Each time that we see the Mad Hatter, he has different ways of pulling people into Wonderland. And actually, a lot like Freddy Krueger, Wonderland is this implanted mental construct that the Mad Hatter created that gives him the source of his power. So he has to pull you into it somehow, which is actually very easy to do, as his character evolves and grows up, which is pretty freaky. So one of his main sources of Wonderland is his hat. His hat is a mind control device that he can kind of mess with you with and send out brainwaves and whatever, and it screws you up and sends you into Wonderland. So on his person, that is one of his major tools and equally one of his weak points. But I know in Arkham Origins, he uses a grandfather clock on Batman at one point to trap him inside the clock. He uses police sirens from police cars in Arkham Knight, which is wicked because it doesn't affect Batman immediately until he gets back to the interrogation room where the Mad Hatter is, and then it activates. So it's a delayed sort of hypnotic whatever that he implanted, timing it out to a meticulous scale so that he gets sucked into a version of Wonderland when he goes to interrogate the Mad Hatter. But it's not just, like, technology that he can use. There's also toxins and stuff that he can use that are, like, neuroagents. Anything from tea to various gases to... whatever he needs to do in order to suck you into Wonderland. Now, once you are in Wonderland, that's a different story. You have to fight your way out of it, and once again, like Freddy Krueger, Mad Hatter's powers go off the charts. However, they do have their limits, because a lot of his abilities only operate off of the memories that people have, and that's how he breaks them down. He still has things that he can do himself because of his own strong mind and willpower, which is strange to think considering he's clinically deranged, but it works in his favor. But his power is not completely limitless, especially with how strong someone's willpower is. Much like what we were talking about earlier with Ahsoka and her being a stubborn little nuisance. Yeah, I might have censored myself. But that's not all. But wait, there's more. Even if people escape Wonderland, even someone with as strong a constitution as Batman, people suffer severe long-term effects from Jervis Tetch's inventions. Everything from PTSD to hallucinations to sometimes even delayed implanted thoughts, reactions, memories, which he can use so the next time that someone were to face him, they are more susceptible to things in Wonderland and they are easier to break. So that is why he's one of Batman's most dangerous villains, because, of course, Batman doesn't kill anybody, but so far the Mad Hatter has not been killed. He's only been incarcerated, and because of that, it makes him more dangerous every time Batman fights him. Granted, Ahsoka has only been in Wonderland once, and that is during this fight. So we don't know if this is going to be a recurring thing where she keeps stumbling into Wonderland, but with prolonged exposure, it can have the same effects. But even in the real world, he's not without inventions. He has various traps and gadgets for defense and sabotage and trickery. Sometimes playing off of circus elements, sometimes just things to get you into Wonderland, or just normal booby traps or whatever for homeland defense. So he is competent enough in the real world to know where his strengths are lacking. However, he's not all-powerful, great, whatever. He's not the Wizard of Oz. He's Alice in Wonderland. Aha. His cons are what Ahsoka can use against him if she is smart enough to resist all of what's going on, including her own emotions, and think it through. One of his biggest flaws, quite literally, is that he's insane. He is delusional, he has severe mania, and PTSD. Because, going off of Alan Moore's reintroduction of the character in one of his many Batman novels, I can't remember if it's The Dark Knight Returns or if it's like something that came after that. For those of you that don't know, Alan Moore is basically the darkest version of Batman we ever saw. I believe he wrote The Killing Joke, which even if you don't know like The Dark Knight Returns and all of that, almost every comic book fan out there, every superhero, DC fan, whatever out there, has at least heard of The Killing Joke. So, his origin. Jervis Tetch is an inventor, science major, whatever. He was always shy, picked on, a nerd, never the strongest, never the fastest, never whatever. Kind of a weasel. But the kind of weasel you feel sorry for. Not like the Riddler. Dear God, not like the Riddler. I'll get into that another time. But one thing that he could always rely on was his smarts. And eventually, he met this beautiful woman named Shelley. And they fell in love. Shelley knew that Jervis was a little weird. Especially when he confesses a lot of his dark childhood. Which, depending on who writes the story, is slightly different, and thus gives him some more motivation on what he does.
Yeah.
For this version, just to keep it semi-appropriate and not as disturbing, I'm just going to make it generally known that he did not have a good childhood either. And because of that, he became sort of an outcast and whatever. Kids never really liked him. He was always estranged, whatever. One of his escapes was books. Because this was before the internet. This was only the 80s, so you didn't have Facebook, you didn't have whatever. He loved to read. And one of his favorite books was, as you could probably guess, Alice in Wonderland, and that whole series by Lewis Carroll.
Yeah.
Shelley learned all of this and whatever, and they begin to design various technologies together and whatever that became the prototypes of what the Mad Hatter would use later. However, bullies, and by bullies I mean the entire football team of Gotham, wrecked his equipment, bullied him, just made his life even worse. So, one of his first acts of violence is murdering them all. How does he do it? Using one of the prototypes he has left. He takes control of the quarterback and makes him kill every other football player in the locker room and then himself. And from that point on, Jervis Tetch realizes the power he has in his hands and gets a little vengeful, as you would imagine. But it gets even worse. Because just when he thinks he has it made, and he's actually trying to do good with his new power because he realizes the dangers that can come of it, a terrible accident happens between a fight with Batman and some other criminal. I can't remember if it's a supervillain or some, like, crooks or something, like one of Penguin's guys or whatever. But in the midst of battle, when Jervis and Shelley are trying to escape, Shelley succumbs to mortal injuries. And unfortunately, could not be saved. This puts a bit of a target on Batman's back and is the final nail in the coffin for Mad Hatter to emerge from Jervis Tech's psyche. Because basically, despite being a superhero, Batman could not save the one woman that understood Jervis and loved him and all of this stuff, and it sort of develops his psychosis. His psychosis, as the Mad Hatter, is that he chases after certain individuals that he sees glimpses of Shelley in. Normally they are women, blonde women, that he refers to as Alice. But in truth, through other comics and games and whatever, and even some of the Mad Hatter's own confessions, the Alice construct can be anyone. At some points it has been Commissioner Gordon. At some points it has even been Batman himself that he wants to
Really?
break the mind of and make his Alice to replace what Batman stole from the Mad Hatter. So, and that's actually a confession that he gives in the Arkham Knight, where he keeps trying to coax him into the cell and have tea with him because Batman is the last Alice that the Hatter wants to break, to have as his own, to replace the damage that he did to his life. So obviously he's a very sympathetic villain if you read through all of his origin. And once again, there's so many different versions of it along the way that it changes like the weather. One of the things that I didn't want to mention, but I feel should be important for this character, due to some of his past that was later revised and whatever by Alan Moore, a lot of the abuse that he faced back then was the no-no-tachi. And because of that, sometimes, because he doesn't really know any better and it's sort of a reflex, he doesn't know any better, and sometimes Hatter gets handsy. But for the sake of this,
A little creepy.
that won't happen. He's not gonna be touching nobody. He's not gonna be like sniffing people's hair and trying to steal their shoes or something weird. He's not gonna be that way. But because of this psychosis, Ahsoka could play on this and potentially do something that would shut him down. And because of this, he can be conned, manipulated, whatever. If Ahsoka finds her way back to the real world, he is not strong, he is not fast, he's a short little squat guy. So even if he can fight in hand-to-hand combat, he has no real superpowers, and Ahsoka can smack the crap out of him. Because she's physically strong, she can enhance her physicality with the Force, and she has other superpowers that could mess him up for good if she gets to the real world and out of Wonderland. Now,
there's also not much on Earth that can stop a lightsaber.
Maybe Captain America's shield, but that's a different universe.
I can see that, 'cause I mean, Mandalorian armor can like withstand some strikes, but not all of it.
Yeah, I'm sure Superman could just be like, huh, and take it to his big beefy chest. And I don't like Superman. That's why he's not in this argument. I don't like Superman. He's such a not good person.
We're gonna get so screeched at.
Oh yeah,
like,
that's fine. That's fine.
Like for me not knowing Rebels, and then for you not liking Superman, it's gonna get bad.
Well, they'll get over it. So, pros against Ahsoka, specifically against her. As mentioned, he can duel her with his little Vorpal ka-ting, ka-ting, ka-ting. In Wonderland, because he can warp reality and whatever, he can actually do a saber duel. And hold his own pretty well. Because she's in Wonderland, and some of her memories are being messed with and whatever, some of her Force abilities, especially the Cosmic Force, I would imagine, because that's whole, like, mind-body routing the Force through your whatever. That sounds wrong.
It's like what they say yoga can do.
Yeah. Wonderland can cancel out some of her Force abilities, forcing her to rely on other things. And the most damaging one of all, she can, the Mad Hatter can access Ahsoka's memories. which he can use all day long and just mess up her brain. But there are cons against him fighting Ahsoka. Because of the Force, and if she can flex her willpower and tell him to back off, some of his Wonderland abilities might not work, because the fight is going on inside Ahsoka's head. If she can will so powerfully stuff not to happen, Jervis Tetch might run into some trouble asserting his own will over her mind, and have some of his abilities lost. Now, this is actually going off of the history of Star Wars, in specifically Episode 3. Based on how Jervis Tetch fights in the comics and in the whatever, we can assume that his dueling style would be like an old fencing whatever. Very fluent on his footwork, one-handed whatever. I look like I'm, dancing like a hippie over here. But this dueling style is actually not so foreign, because Count Dooku, who is one of the best duelists in all of Star Wars lore, uses a fencing-type dueling method known as Makashi, which was invented by Christopher Lee himself, and later named, of course, by the fandom and whatever. Going off of the fight between Dooku versus Anakin in Revenge of the Sith on the Invisible Hand, Jervis Tetch would lose in a sword fight. He would hold his own, but he would eventually lose. Because the thing about his dueling style is precision, and not strength, not speed, whatever. Simply surgical, precise strikes and parrying. Ahsoka Tano is fluent in a lot of different forms. One of them being Xian, which is a variation of Anakin Skywalker's dueling form, Gem So, which is all about hitting your opponent like a truck, pummeling them as hard as you possibly can. In the Dooku v Anakin fight, the reason why Anakin wins is because he is strong enough to overpower Count Dooku and take him down and whatever, because he can just beat through his defenses. Mind you, Dooku is able to enhance himself with the Force to make himself stronger, faster, whatever. Now, in Wonderland, Jervis can probably do something like this. However, considering he's a human without any superpowers, it would be severely limited to what a Jedi, Sith, whatever can do. So with this dueling style alone, combined with the fact that he has even less advantages than Count Dooku, Ahsoka Tano can basically mop the floor with him if she's able to be decisive in the fight. And the biggest con against Ahsoka that Ahsoka could actually use is that despite all of this, Jervis Tetch does not want to kill Ahsoka Tano. Now I bet you're thinking, bruh, didn't you just say he used an entire football team to murder each other? Yes, but they weren't his Alice's. He's perfectly fine with murder. He will kill anybody. He does not care.
He's perfectly okay with murdering a few people.
Yeah, he's fine with it. That doesn't, gotta crack a few eggs to make an omelet. But once his psychosis locks onto someone and deems them an Alice, which once again, construct, not a person, per se, he does not want to kill them. And he will go out of his way not to kill them. Because the whole thing about his Alice's is that he wants to keep them forever so he can have a friend, have some of the love that he lost that Batman took away from him, and not be lonely anymore. That's basically his motive. So he goes by it through some pretty means, but all of the things that he would do to Ahsoka in Wonderland would be to break her mind and sort of force her to fall in love with him, but mainly maybe just a slave? If it's the darker parts of the thingy? Yeah, I know, it sounds bad. That's why I'm going off the more Arkham thing where he wants some love-ins and not a toy. But if we're going off the Alan Moore version, it's gonna be kind of messed up and nasty, as the ending of that fight would go if it went in Adder's favor. So because he does not want to kill Ahsoka / Alice, and everything he would be doing is just to break down her mind, she can toughen up that willpower and basically maybe talk her way out of it, but also fight her way out of it. And once she realizes he's not trying to kill her, the fight might be easier because she might not hold back as much, or she'd be able to reason her way out of whatever and make him let go. Stop hanging on. Let go. So those are pros, cons for the character, pros and cons against the fight with Ahsoka Tano. What else could be said about these two in the fight? How do you think Ahsoka would react to all of the things that I just listed for how this fight is going to go on his end? How do you think she would work out?
Hatter would be absolutely done the moment she's not in Wonderland.
Oh, for sure. As he is with a lot of different people.
But using my semi-creative mind,
I like it.
since it's not in the Rebels time period, it's not like, I'd say it's a couple months after, maybe a year after Order 66. So it's still rather fresh, considering it's war.
Yeah.
He could very well, like,
Pull some stuff
she
out of
was
that.
in the building when all of the
Good soldiers
clothes-
follow orders.
Yeah, so he could use that almost to overwhelm her. Kind of like how a zombie horde, like the moment you start losing is when there's one too many, and then just more and more come.
Mm-hmm.
If he used that tactic of like wanting to overwhelm her to break her down, you just make her think a bunch of the clones are like around her, because she still loved every clone.
Mm-hmm.
Like she loved
Even
Rex.
Cody.
Rex was her best.
Even Stinky Cody.
Yeah, but like it still hurt her. It hurts her a lot to try and kill a clone, because she knows who it is.
Yeah. I should have used that for my ending. I didn't. I didn't go with the clone route, but maybe I should. I don't know. I feel like mine worked enough, but
the Darth Vader fight I think could work well. My only thing is with that, Ahsoka is actually the first one to initiate the fight.
Yep. She jumps at him and
Yeah. I don't know how well that would work. I'm sure you could play it like kind of mess her up instead of like specifically replaying that fight. Instead she acts like it's hold on. Whew. Dyslexia. Let me tell you. It's something I can't explain. But if Hatter really wanted to, he could play off the guilt that she might feel that the reason Anakin turned to the dark side was because she wasn't there and she left. So I mean that could definitely
that'd do some
that
damage.
could definitely do some not good things.
Especially if, I mean, it might be something to show him in the armor and whatever, but I think it might mess her up a little more. Well, actually, I don't know if he'd be able to do that because she never saw that, but pre-suit Vader, where it's still fully Anakin's body and whatever. I mean, she's seen him when he's gone to the dark side.
Yeah.
So he might be able to make something up out of that, but not necessarily the Darth Vader that storms the Coruscant Temple and younglings.
I do know what you mean, because I think we might be there's an art piece out there where Ahsoka sees Vader in like I call it a revival chamber. That's not what it actually is.
A bacta tank?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
She
him
sees him when he
charred
has to
up.
be put in one of the.
Yeah, it's based off the Rogue One scene where he's in the tube.
Yeah, that wouldn't be good.
I like it.
I'm trying to think of like any other major thing.
I mean, he has quite a bit to work with.
Yeah, that's still a lot.
Yeah, he definitely has quite a bit to work with. But honestly,
Flo died.
Yeah, his plane getting shot.
Flo died. His ship gets ran into a building.
Not ran into a building. It gets shot out of the air and it hits the temple.
Oh,
that's why part of it's crumbled. No, it goes down. It gets shot out of the sky by clones.
I thought like he was getting overwhelmed and he accidentally just wasn't paying attention and like neumed into a building.
Oh no, he gets shot out of the sky.
Oof.
But,
I mean, still, she does know he ends up dying.
Yeah, but I mean, how much does he really need before it's just like, okay, I get your point. You're broken. I don't need to keep pulling through every single memory. Like,
yeah.
How much does it take to tax on Ahsoka's already damaged mental state?
She's still extraordinarily strong. I wouldn't say she's like Batman level where he can just kind of and like get through Wonderland. But
yeah, but
she'd put up a good fight. He wouldn't have to go far. It depends on who's writing the story. If it's like Dave Filoni, she'd of course like she'd have a breaking for her.
That's his baby. That's unfair. But he'd write it well, so I can't complain.
Yeah.
I like Dave Filoni.
Personally, because I know a lot of stuff happens to her. She gets blamed for bombing a whole temple. So I mean,
yeah,
I'm sure showing that like her family distrusts her would probably be about enough to make her. Because if you can make her slip into the dark side, that's pretty. From there, you can kind of break her down more.
Yes.
It's arguably easier.
Yes, but if she gets to that point where she turns into El Spoopy, her powers immediately like double, triple, quadruple, and Mad Hatter basically doesn't know what he's signed up for, because he's like, "Oh, you've gone insane. You've come to the dark side. I can kind of understand what that is. I can use this." And all of a sudden, she's just like, "Ah!" and screeches his head into oblivion. Yeah, she starts like herky-jerking around, crawling after him, you know, like a spider or something. All of a sudden, he's crying in a corner because she's forever damaged and now on the dark side, and it's kind of like watching The Exorcist Star Wars edition.
Although I will say, like, the moment she goes to the dark side, she's not really Alice-like anymore. Like, she kind of loses all the qualities.
Yeah, she becomes very angry, very... It's like... Think of Darth Maul, but pregnant. That's kind of how I imagine her being like.
I can't say because I stopped watching the episode because I wanted to experience it with you. But
You wanted me
probably.
to experience the full power of the dark side.
I wanted to make sure you were there to see it since you're piggybacking off of me.
Yeah, yeah. Well, whatever.
But like,
So,
because I'm sure that the reason Mad Hatter made her Alice is because of how compassionate she can be, and how because Alice is also a very stubborn person too. Like
yeah.
in Disney and in most.
Where's the pictures? It's boring without pictures.
I remember that. But even in like the Disney movie, like the live action, Bayard, the dog, he's like, we gotta get you to the White Castle, and she's like, about that.
How about
I actually
no?
want to go save Hatter.
Yeah, and not only that, but even as an alien, Ahsoka is physically beautiful, and I'm not going into that, and the way that her features are, they're kind of cartoonish enough that it would actually make sense with the way she looks in Wonderland. You know, the big eyes, the weird skin color, the lips.
Yeah.
It looks like something that would already come out of Wonderland. And considering that she's been to planets that look very much like Wonderland, Felucia, for example, there's a comparison. But you're right. The reason why she was probably selected is because before the bad stuff happens and they meet, I can imagine that she was reluctant and worried, but once she saw this person, she felt a touch of being a hero. And if the fight would go in Ahsoka's favor, you would probably see that at the end, where she would not wind up killing him, except if it's absolutely, positively necessary.
She's definitely not one to like turn away from someone who needs help. Whenever she first meets someone, it's not completely with aggression.
No.
So I mean,
Unlike Captain,
she
a
probably
Padawan would
be
slow
like,
me down.
Yeah.
Um.
She's very like friendly until provoked. She's very neutral. Like she's cool until provoked.
She's gray. So, depending on whose argument you liked more, we will give the results as to what could theoretically happen if one of these characters won. I will give you the links for these videos. At the end of this, they will be in the description of the YouTube video that I'm sharing with you, because I'm sure that this video will be so long, Flip Grid will screech at me. So, depending on who you want to see win, the link will be there, and you can find out what happens. Who do you like? Who do you trust? I don't know what else to say.